Hey everyone, we are working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Hello?
Logan.
Yeah, this is him.
Hey, it's Ryan Poles from Chicago Bears. How you doing?
Let's go.
He said, "Let's go." Awesome, man. Hey, we're gonna put you in, your name in, and I'm gonna hand you over to Coach Johnson. Okay?
Let's do it.
What's up, buddy?
How you doing?
You ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Let's do it.
Perfect, man. Perfect. We love what you did, so love visiting with you a month ago and made a big impression on us, all right?
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
All right, buddy. Say congrats to your family, and I'm going to pass you on over to our president. This is Kevin Warren, okay?
All right.
Hold on. Stop everything you are doing right now, because what you just watched is a 24-year-old kid from Council Bluffs, Iowa, sitting in front of a camera, completely unbothered, talking about walking into an NFL locker room and competing with a 7-year veteran for a starting job, and he said it like he was ordering lunch. No nerves, no hesitation, no rookie jitters, just that quiet, unshakable, almost unsettling confidence that makes scouts lose their minds and veterans lose sleep. Welcome back to Favs, the only channel that gives you the NFL drama unfiltered, uncensored, and with absolutely zero corporate spin. I am your host, Dre Fiver, and today we are going as deep as we possibly can into one of the most fascinating, most layered, and most genuinely juicy storylines brewing anywhere in the National Football League right now. And it is happening right in the middle of one of the league's most exciting young offenses, in one of the league's most passionate football cities, centered around one of the most important and most overlooked positions on the entire field. We are talking about the Chicago Bears and a center room situation that started as a 5-alarm offseason crisis and somehow, impossibly, turned into one of the best problems any team in the NFL is currently dealing with. We are talking about a veteran Super Bowl starter whose job security just got complicated in real time by a second-round pick. We are talking about a rookie who swept every individual award college football has to offer at his position and is already being floated as a legitimate day-one starter before he has taken a single professional snap. And yes, we are talking about a potential trade that would reshape the center market across 2 conferences and send shockwaves through the league before training camp even opens its doors. This is not a slow news day filler story. This is a genuine, beautiful, perfectly constructed mess, and we are going to break every single layer of it down until there is nothing left standing. Let's start from the very beginning, because in order to understand how wild this situation actually is, you need to understand exactly what the Chicago Bears thought they had going into this offseason. Earlier this year, the Bears were riding high. They had locked up their Pro Bowl center on a 3-year deal worth over $40 million. That player was supposed to be the quarterback of the offensive line. And that phrase matters because it is not just a figure of speech in Ben Johnson's system. The center in this offense is the person who identifies defensive fronts before the snap, communicates protection adjustments to every lineman on the field, and has to be mentally synchronized with the quarterback before the ball ever moves. It is the most cerebral position in the trenches, and the Bears thought they had their guy locked in for years. The offensive line was the strength of the roster. Caleb Williams was surrounded. Everything was clicking and pointed in the right direction. Then that center walked into the building and told everyone he was done. 27 years old, Pro Bowl resume, prime earning years still ahead of him, contract already signed, and he just walked away from all of it. Retired. Gone. The Bears were left with one of the most important positions on their offense wide open, and they had approximately 0 runway to fix it before the offseason market dried up. So Ryan Poles did what any sharp general manager does in a crisis. He made a phone call, and he solved the problem quickly and cheaply, rather than chase the top available center on the open market, who had just signed a deal worth over $25 million a year, money that would have wrecked Chicago's cap flexibility. Poles traded a future 5th-round pick to the New England Patriots and acquired Garrett Bradbury. Clean deal, minimal cost, proven starter. Bradbury had just spent the previous season snapping the ball for the AFC champions in New England, and by every advanced metric available, he had been excellent. Over 1,000 snaps behind the ball, and not a single sack surrendered. Not one penalty. On a championship roster. In a complex offensive system. That is not a placeholder. That is a legitimate starting center who knows exactly how to do his job at the highest level. Problem solved. The Bears exhaled. The offensive line was intact. Caleb Williams was protected. Everybody moved on to the next item on the offseason checklist. Then the NFL draft happened, and the Chicago Bears completely blew the whole thing open. With the 57th overall pick in the second round of the 2026 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears walked up to that podium and selected Logan Jones, center, out of the University of Iowa. And I want you to sit with that for just a second before we move forward. Because this is not a team that drafted a center because they needed a center. They already had one. They had just traded for one. They had spent real draft capital and real money to make sure the position was handled. And then they used a second-round pick, one of the most valuable commodities in all of roster building, on the exact same position. You do not do that by accident. You do not do that without a plan. And you do not do that unless the player you are selecting is genuinely, legitimately special. Logan Jones is genuinely, legitimately special. Let me tell you exactly why. This kid started 51 games over his career at Iowa. 51. He did not just play in their system. He anchored it. He was the player that held together one of the most respected offensive line programs in the entire country under one of the most demanding coaches in college football. He won the Remington Trophy, which is given annually to the single best center in all of college football. He was a unanimous All-American. He was a 3-time All-Big Ten selection. He was a team captain. And here is the number that should tell you everything you need to know about his readiness. In his final college season, playing against Power 4 defensive lines all year long, Logan Jones allowed 1 sack and 3 quarterback pressures across over 700 offensive snaps. His pass blocking grade from the Advanced Analytics Services ranked him first out of over 300 centers in college football. First, not top 5, not top 10. First. And the physical profile is equally impressive. At 6'3" and just under 300 pounds, Jones is not the biggest center you will ever see, but he moves like someone who was born to play in a zone blocking scheme. His initial quickness out of his stance is elite. His hand placement is technically refined in a way that usually takes years of NFL coaching to develop. He has a vice grip that allows him to latch onto defenders and redirect them before they can generate any power. He holds an Iowa weight room record with a 700-pound squat. And perhaps most importantly for Ben Johnson's system, his football intelligence is off the charts. He does not just block who is in front of him. He reads the defense, anticipates movement, and adjusts his angles on the fly. That is the kind of instinctual processing that you cannot coach into a player. Either they see the game that way or they do not. Jones sees it that way. He also came into the Iowa program as a defensive lineman. He flipped to the offensive side of the ball and not only learned a completely new position, but became the best college player in the country at it. That tells you something about his coachability, his work ethic, and the kind of mental horsepower he is operating with. Ben Johnson said that when Jones came in for his top 30 visit, it was the meeting that truly sealed the deal. The maturity, the composure, the football intelligence, it all came through so clearly that the coaching staff left that room knowing they were looking at something rare. Here is my personal take, and I am not going to sugarcoat it. When I watched the tape on Logan Jones and then looked at what the Bears already had in Garrett Bradbury, my first thought was not great depth move. My first thought was somebody's job just got a lot more complicated. Because this is not a guy you draft to sit. This is not a guy you draft to carry a clipboard and learn the system for 2 years, while the veteran ahead of him soaks up the starts. This is a guy you draft because you believe he is ready to compete right now, and you want to force that competition into the open, and see what happens when 2 legitimate starters go head-to-head every single day. And that is exactly what Ben Johnson has said this competition is going to be. He confirmed it publicly right after the draft. He acknowledged that selecting Jones creates high-level competition at one of the most important spots on the entire offense. He could not close the door on the possibility that a rookie could walk in and win the job outright. And yet, in the same breath, he made clear that Garrett Bradbury has the experience, the resume, and the system knowledge to be the starter heading into the season. That is not contradiction. That is a head coach being exactly as honest as a head coach is allowed to be in May. Translation: we love this rookie, we trust our veteran, and we are going to let the competition decide. But do not expect us to hand anything to anybody before a single preseason snap has been played. Now, here is why that creates such a genuinely complicated situation. The center is not just a blocker in Ben Johnson's offense. We keep saying that, but let's actually sit with what it means. The center is responsible for identifying the defensive front before every single snap. He is the one who tells the guards, the tackles, and sometimes even the tight ends who they are blocking and what protection adjustment is being made. He is the one who has to be on the same mental page as the quarterback, in this case Caleb Williams, one of the most cerebral young quarterbacks in football, before the ball is ever put in motion. Learning that system does not happen in a weekend. It does not happen in a training camp. It is a process that unfolds over months of installation, film study, practice reps, and real game experience. Bradbury has been doing that kind of work professionally for 7 years. Jones has never done it in an NFL building. And yet, Logan Jones spent 6 years at one of the most disciplined, most detail-oriented offensive line programs in college football. He was a captain. He was the guy making pre-snap calls on that line. He was the one who identified fronts and communicated adjustments while blocking Big Ten defensive tackles who are now starting in this league. The adjustment from college to NFL is real, and it is significant, but Jones is not arriving at this level as a raw prospect who needs years of development. He is arriving as a polished, experienced, football-smart player who was doing advanced line communication at a college level for 4 years. The runway he needs to get up to speed in a Ben Johnson system is shorter than it would be for almost any other rookie you can name. So what does the competition actually look like? Bradbury comes in as the incumbent. He has the starting reps in OTAs, the first crack at the playbook installation, and the institutional advantage of having played professional football for 7 seasons. Jones comes in with the upside, the athleticism, the draft capital behind his selection signaling organizational belief, and the hunger of a player who knows that this is the moment he has been building toward his entire life. And according to Jones himself, he is not intimidated by any of it. He has said publicly that having Bradbury in the building is a resource, not a threat. That iron sharpens iron, and that both of them are going to get better because of the competition. That is the kind of mature, team-first framing that you love to hear from a rookie. But do not be fooled. Behind closed doors, that competition is going to be fierce, physical, and absolutely relentless from day one of training camp. Now let's get into the part of this story that has the entire NFL paying attention. Because while the Bears are managing this competition internally, the league has already identified exactly who wants Garrett Bradbury if Chicago decides they are ready to move on. And the team at the top of that list makes so much logical sense that it almost writes itself. The Baltimore Ravens. Let's talk about why this connection is so much deeper than a simple need-meets-availability scenario. Baltimore came into this offseason having lost their all-pro center in free agency. He signed a monster deal elsewhere, and the Ravens chose not to match. Fair enough. You cannot pay every star player, and Eric DeCosta has always built through the draft and smart acquisition rather than overpaying in free agency. The plan was to address the position in the draft. Baltimore identified 2 prospects they believed could come in and contribute immediately. One of them was Logan Jones. The other was a center out of Florida. The Bears took Jones at 57. The Chargers took the Florida prospect 2 picks later at 63. The Ravens got neither of their targets. In the space of 6 picks, Baltimore's entire draft-based solution at center evaporated. DeCosta went on record after the draft saying that upgrading via a trade remains an active option. And the moment he said that, every NFL insider in the country started drawing the same line between Baltimore and Chicago. Because the Bears just happened to have an experienced, scheme-fitting, 30-year-old veteran center sitting on their roster, whose path to starting is now significantly complicated by a second-round rookie. The connection is not just about need, either. It runs deeper than that. Garrett Bradbury played his college football at NC State. The current Ravens offensive line coach coached that very position group at NC State during Bradbury's time with the program. That is a pre-existing relationship. That is a coach who already knows what Bradbury looks like when the lights are on. Already knows his strengths, already knows how he processes information and communicates at the line. When the Ravens offensive line coach advocates for bringing Bradbury to Baltimore, it is not based on film alone. It is based on personal knowledge that is a significant factor in how these conversations go inside an NFL front office. And Bradbury's fit in Baltimore extends beyond the coaching connection. He played over 1,000 snaps last season without surrendering a sack or drawing a penalty. He has started every game of his professional career when healthy, 105 career starts, not once being a healthy scratch. He is battle-tested, smart, durable, and immediately available. For a Ravens team that needs to put a capable, reliable center in front of Lamar Jackson right now, Bradbury checks every box. It is not a question of whether this trade makes sense. The question is purely one of timing and price. And timing is exactly where things get complicated. Because in the days immediately following the draft, the Bears also did something with Bradbury's contract that sent a very specific signal to the rest of the league. They restructured his deal, converted $1 million in incentives into guaranteed salary, bringing his total guaranteed money up to $3.7 million and lowering his cap number from $5.7 million to $4.7 million for the 2026 season. On the surface, that sounds like a small bookkeeping move, but nothing in an NFL front office is purely bookkeeping. Every contract adjustment tells a story. Here is what that move might actually mean. First possibility. The Bears converted those incentives to guaranteed money because they genuinely believe Logan Jones could win the starting job, which would have made those performance-based incentives nearly impossible for Bradbury to earn. In other words, they made Bradbury whole on money he might never collect playing time stats, which is the kind of move you make when you respect a player but cannot guarantee him snaps. Second possibility, by making Bradbury's contract cleaner and his guaranteed number higher, the Bears made him a more attractive and easier to process trade target for any team that calls. A cleaner contract with known guarantees is simpler to absorb in a trade. You are not inheriting complicated incentive structures or unknown financial exposure. A team acquiring Bradbury now knows exactly what they are getting financially. Both of those explanations point in the same direction. The Bears are not necessarily trading Bradbury today, but they are absolutely positioning themselves to make that move as easy as possible when the right moment arrives. Now, I want to be real with you for a second because this is the part where you separate the actual football analysis from the hot take machine. The Bears should not, and almost certainly will not, trade Garrett Bradbury before training camp. Any football mind worth listening to has said the same thing, including league executives who spoke anonymously to reporters covering this story. You do not trade a starting caliber veteran before you have confirmation that your rookie can handle the full weight of the most mentally demanding position on the offensive line in one of the most complex offensive systems in the NFL. You just do not. The risk is too high. The downside, a rookie struggling through growing pains while Caleb Williams absorbs unnecessary pressure, is too costly for a team that genuinely believes it is a contender in 2026. Bradbury is the insurance policy. He is the veteran safety net that allows the coaching staff to be patient with Jones without ever putting the offense in genuine jeopardy. And here is the other layer that does not get talked about enough. Even if Jones wins the starting job outright, you still want Bradbury in that building for the first half of the season. Because when your starting center is a rookie running one of the NFL's most complex protection systems, the most valuable thing you can put next to him on the bench is a 7-year veteran who has done everything that rookie is now being asked to do. Bradbury becomes a living, breathing resource. A real-time consultant, somebody Jones can turn to after a series and ask, "What did you see on that stunt?" and get an answer that comes from years of professional experience rather than a coaching diagram on a whiteboard. That relationship has value that does not show up in any statistics. Jones himself has already framed it exactly this way. He has talked about what it means to have veteran presences like Bradbury and the other experienced linemen in that room. He has made it clear that his approach is to absorb everything, ask every question, and compete with everything he has. That is a winning mentality. That is also exactly the kind of attitude that makes a front office feel comfortable eventually making the move of trading the veteran, because they trust that the rookie has the character and the drive to handle it. So here is the realistic timeline as I see it. OTAs run through June, both players get reps, the coaching staff evaluates Jones's absorption of the playbook and his communication at the line in controlled settings. Training camp opens in late July. Full pads go on. Live competition begins. If Jones looks like he is genuinely ready, if he is making the pre-snap calls correctly, handling NFL-level defensive stunts in his protection reads, and operating at a high level in preseason games, then the Bears will have a real decision to make before the final roster cuts in late August. That is the window. That is when a Bradbury trade to Baltimore, or potentially to the New York Giants, who have also been identified as a center-needy team, becomes a real conversation. What does that trade look like? The Bears gave up a 5th-round pick to get Bradbury. Getting a 6th back would be a loss on the transaction. A 4th-round pick in exchange for a proven, durable starting-caliber center with a clean contract would represent a reasonable win. Some people have floated the idea of a player-for-player swap involving a Ravens defensive end who fits the Bears' defensive profile. A big, athletic edge rusher type who matches what defensive coordinator Dennis Allen wants on that side of the ball. That kind of creative deal is not out of the question for a front office that has shown it is willing to think outside traditional transaction structures. But whether it is a pick or a player, the Bears will not give Bradbury away for nothing. And they should not have to. The market for starting caliber veteran centers who can contribute immediately is always limited. Bradbury's value is real, and Ryan Poles knows it. Let's zoom out for a minute and talk about the NFC North dimension of this story, because the Bears are not operating in a vacuum. They are building in the middle of one of the most ferociously competitive divisions in professional football, and every move they make needs to be viewed through that lens. The Green Bay Packers just added a veteran backup quarterback who brings mobility and experience to a system built around Jordan Love, a player who has missed time in each of the last 2 seasons. That is a smart, low-drama move by a smart organization. It does not change the balance of power in the division, but it removes a vulnerability that opposing teams had been quietly circling. The Packers protected themselves, which is exactly what contenders do. The Vikings situation is the one that should genuinely concern every Bears fan watching this. Minnesota already has what many consider to be the best wide receiver in professional football at the top of their depth chart. They have a dynamic young complement at the 2 spot. And now they are reportedly in serious discussions to add a third receiver who brings a completely different dimension to the room, a physical, reliable, elite blocking presence who would give that offense a tool set that defenses simply cannot account for all at once. If Minnesota is running a mobile quarterback in 2026, and every indication points to that being the plan, and they have a blocker of that caliber aligned outside, the defensive coordinator's nightmare scenario becomes very real very quickly. The NFC North is not getting easier, it is getting harder. And the Bears need to make sure everything they are doing this summer is pointed directly at competing for that division. Here is the thing though, and this is the point that gets lost in all the individual transaction analysis. The Bears came out of this draft in a better position than almost any team in the league. They addressed their offensive line, they added defensive players that fit Dennis Allen's scheme. They have depth at multiple positions that they lacked a year ago. And most importantly, they have Caleb Williams, who by all accounts spent this entire offseason locked in, motivated, and ready to prove to the world that the first chapter of his NFL story is not the final word on who he is as a quarterback. Everything the Bears are doing this offseason orbits around putting Williams in the best possible situation to thrive. And right now, that means having 2 legitimate starting centers competing to protect him. That is a beautiful problem. That is the kind of problem winning franchises create intentionally. The Bears are not hoping to be good in 2026. They are building to take back their division and establish themselves as a long-term force in the NFC. Ryan Poles has constructed a roster with real talent, real depth, and real competitive pressure at every key position. The Logan Jones pick was not just about finding a center. It was a statement about the standard this organization expects and about the fact that nobody's job is safe unless they earn it every single day. Competition breeds excellence. It always has. And right now, no position group in the NFL has a more compelling, more high-stakes competition unfolding than the center room of the Chicago Bears. Training camp cannot get here fast enough. The battles are going to be real. The stakes are going to be significant. And when the dust settles and Caleb Williams takes the field for the 2026 regular season opener, whoever is delivering that snap, whether it is the 30-year-old veteran with 105 career starts and a Super Bowl appearance on his resume, or the Iowa kid who won every award college football has and has not taken a single NFL snap yet, you can be absolutely certain that the Chicago Bears went through fire to put their best man in that spot.